two massive ruptures to my brain. I'd spent 4 months in a full-time rehabilitation setting, which consisted of physiotherapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, group therapy. It was a full-day program, 7 days a week. I spent another 2 years after that as an outpatient in another rehabilitation facility. I had lost all working memory. Working memory, I don't know if you know what that is. Working memory is your ability to be able to require what is expected of you when you go to work every day. I could no longer remember how to turn on a computer. I couldn't remember the software program when I was doing the account receivable and payable. Now I couldn't even do math. I couldn't remember my coworkers' names or faces, my customers' names, or the company that they were representing. I was representing a company that was international in 75 different companies, and I had a big sales job. I had zero working memory. I quickly learned, eventually I was forced out of my job and found myself on permanent disability. I quickly learned that the workplace was simply not a place for vocational rehabilitation. Co-workers are not therapists, and it's not their job. But I wanted to relearn. I was determined to relearn. As an educator for children with learning disabilities, I believed that rehabilitation is re-education when it comes to brain injury. So I started my journey in the first 5 years of my rehabilitation, teaching myself how to read, how to write, how to speak, how to communicate more effectively, and reintegrating myself back into the workplace through a variety of volunteer positions. In the interim, I was still doing outpatient rehabilitation, and what that consisted of, you go in there once a week in a group therapy. You have a doctor facilitating this group. And the object was you had to say your name, why you were there, and what was new during the week. It sounded like an AA meeting, and it really did. So that was their idea of therapy, and each week it was the same thing. Your name, why you were there, and what was new. I made the mistake in 1 week saying that I had a new volunteer position. I was going to rehabilitate myself back into the working field by rehabilitating. And the doctor looked at me in front of the group and said, "You cannot volunteer, you are incompetent." And I thought, how could anybody be incompetent to volunteer? This is hideous. Really, it is. So I go back to the volunteer place after I had just been hired as a volunteer and gotten my training, and I go into the director's office, and I say, well, you know, this organization is called Pathways to Independence, and they focused on people with brain injury as well. So it was kind of like the competitor. And I had to go in and say, well, you know, this doctor has told me I was too incompetent to volunteer. I'm sorry for wasting your time. I think I need to leave, and I cannot volunteer here. And the director just sat there, looked at me, and said, that's just one person's opinion. You're going to volunteer here. And I said, I cannot go against doctor's order because he's going to terminate my rehabilitation. She said, it's very simple. I'm going to sign you up as a client. You're going to do the activities like everybody else, but you're going to organize the activities. She says, what do you think about that? Then I said, well, some people work cash under the table, so what you're saying is I get to volunteer under the table. I said, all right. She was kind of like my evil twin. I kind of like the idea. I said, but what do I say to this doctor when I go back to the support group? She says, don't tell him you're volunteering. You're signed up as a client. I didn't feel really good about lying. I called my mother. Yes, I'm 36 years old. I still called her for wisdom. I'm 45 now. And she says, Miranda, you may have lost your logic, your ability to reason and think. But there's one thing that you have that nobody can take, and it's still good. And I said, well, what is that? She said, it's your heart. And it is still good. Follow it.
Bravo.
It's my turn to go into the brain rehab center, and we're about 10, 15 people. It varies. It's my turn to introduce myself, say who I was and what was new. I got up and I said, my name is Miranda. I'm not brain injured. I sustained an injury to my brain, but I am not going to no longer accept that I am the injury.
Wow.
I said, what's new? I quit my volunteer job on the advice of this doctor because I'm too incompetent to volunteer. I said that in front of the whole group. And I said, you know what, doctor, you're really right. You are correct that I'm incompetent because anybody who's so foolish to listen to such words must be.
No.
I said, so I signed up for activities and I continued there. Sadly, well, I was volunteering. There was this young girl, and my heart hits home when it comes to kids because I taught kids with learning disabilities, and here was a 17-year-old girl with a brain injury. She had a car accident when she was 4 and lost both of her parents. She's never been in a formal education setting. I started teaching her to read. I started with her alphabets, with her sound, and she was bringing books. The books that she chose to read were children's books. Let's start with where they're at and work them up. The therapist came in, said this child, this individual shouldn't be reading baby books. She has a psychosis problem. I was so grossed out by the inhumanity of rehabilitation. I had quit the volunteer job. And I had applied somewhere else, Volunteer Ottawa, where I learned basic computer skills. I learned how to read, I learned how to write, operate the computer, answer the phone. I'm now in the Speakers Bureau for Volunteer Ottawa. I speak at different organizations, Immigration Center, high schools, women's shelters, to encourage them to volunteer so that they too can gain work experience just like I did. Then I won the Volunteer of the Year award that year. Not bad for an incompetent volunteer, I'd say. Zig Ziglar says, now that this is an author that I really look up to. Zig Ziglar once said, help enough people get what they want, and you will get what you want. And by giving my time to a lot of different organizations, I rehabilitated myself back to work. From there, I ventured out onto opening my own business, but I still had deficits. I had a lot of anger and frustration, trying to reintegrate back into the society. I couldn't deal with the frustration, the anger, the fear, the sorrow. And I had some cognitive issues that were preventing me from doing a lot of things. I went back to how I was teaching kids. Brain Gym. This was a manual I used for kids to help them with their cognitive abilities in school for reading and writing. And Brain Gym for each activity helps them with some of the fine and gross motor skills, reading, writing, comprehension. And I thought, I taught all these kids for 18 years, why not me? So I said, how am I going to do this? I found Philip Live with the Qigong, and I thought that Qigong was very effective because you're doing exercise to cross the middle meridian. So the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body, the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. So when you're doing these movements, this is what you're doing. You're crossing the meridian, helping both sides of the brain. As a result of this, my memory retention is improved. I'm able to now make a grocery list, forget the list, go to the store, pick up every single item on that list, and not have missed anything, where before I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. Doctors had me on many medication to combat depression after brain injury. It's a common symptom for brain injury. I'm no longer on anything. It took a year, 0 medication. I control it through the meditation. Philip reminds me, sometimes he'll call me daily. He reminds me to meditate.
Working with her some time, during the lunch hour, I do some meditation. I tell her, okay, we meditate together. And then I'm working with her, send my energy, guiding her energy to do meditation. So She feel calm, feel better.
Relaxed.
Relaxed. Yeah.
That's it. So I think that's it. I mean, I have more energy. I don't sleep as much. That's a common issue with people with brain injury. They sleep a lot in order to recoup the energy that they're spending through the day. 3-4 hours nap time. I may nap now maybe once a month, every few weeks. I don't require this. I take on more clients. I'm more effective in my business. I can handle more clients because I have the memory and the capacity and the energy to do it. Thanks to Qigong and Philip.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Miranda. So right now she becomes stronger and better. I know there's a long way to go. Back to the normal, but there's a hope, and there's a good indication she can improve herself. A lot of doctors tell her you have this locking into some so-called rehab center, and that she can stand up to work for herself, and then right now she can help other people, inspire other people. That's a miracle. Thank you. Okay, now.